come out and try to get this. This is all a part of my sickness. But listen up, cause you're about to miss this. Everything that you're about to witness. Get up, come out and try to get this. And this is all a part of my sickness.
Hello and welcome to Crack the Cred, the show that takes the mystery out of cracking passwords or finding ways around them. I'm your host, Dana Epp, and in today's episode, I'm going to show you how to get into Windows. Yep, you got it. Every single time that I talk to somebody in the field about passwords, we come back to talking about the Windows password. Now, there's lots of tools that you can use like live CDs for Linux that can go in there and try to reset a local password. And that's not something we really want to look at trying to do. More importantly, there are actually official ways to do it and do it correctly. And so what I'm going to show you today is the officially supported Microsoft way of getting into a Windows system. Now, the nice thing about this is it's actually a supported tool that you can download directly from Microsoft. If you're a partner or have software assurance, you can download something called MDOP, or the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack. And inside that pack is a tool called Dart. Now, Dart is the Disaster and Recovery Toolkit, and inside there is a really nice little tool called Locksmith. So there's a couple things we're going to need. The first thing we're going to have to do is actually download MDOT. So using your partner account, or if you have SA, either way you're going to get into TechNet, and just do a quick search in your subscriber downloads for Desktop Pack. When you do so, you should be able to find the Microsoft Desktop Optimization Pack and just pick the latest one that makes sense for you. Download that ISO and install it onto your system. When you're looking at the MDOP side, you can actually look in a directory for something called Dart and install that MSI. Once it's installed, you'll have something called the Dart Recovery Image Wizard. And all you have to do is run through that wizard very, very quickly and make a couple of choices. The first one is you have to have the original source media of the target you're going to compromise. In this particular case, we're going to just show an example of getting into a Windows 7 system. And in the process of doing that, we're just going to build a simple bootable USB stick, giving us the capability of doing it. So start up the wizard and step through it, where the first thing it's going to ask you for is, where is that source media? So we simply browse for it and grab it from the DVD that you have on hand. And you do have that original DVD, right? Probably like me, no. No worries. You can just download the ISO directly from TechNet and utilize that. Just make sure you mount that ISO onto the system using one of your favorite tools like Virtual Clone Drive or ISO Mount or whatever tool that makes sense for your deployment. So once it's extracted that boot image, it's going to give you the ability to list all the different kinds of application or tools that you can use as part of Dart. Now, the one that we care about obviously is Locksmith, but since you're building the image, use everything you can. It's a really nice tool to have for any kind of disaster and recovery you may need to do in a Windows environment. Now, I will recommend that you actually remove, or more importantly, disable Crash Analyzer. Now, Crash Analyzer is an awesome tool, and if you have the Win debug tools, you're more than welcome to include that and utilize it. However, most people won't have it, and down the road as you go through the wizard, it's going to start asking for some tools that you don't have on the system. So just simply go in there, select Crash Analyzer, and hit disable. Once you've done that though, just hit next, and what we'll ultimately do here is provide the bits that you need, create the ISO image for you, and then save it out to your desktop. From there, all you have to do is write that ISO to a USB stick. So there's tons of different tools out there, and use your favorite one like ISO to USB, or you could use the Microsoft toolkit that actually writes it out there, ISO recorder, lots of different ways of doing it. Of course, if you don't want to use a USB stick, the Dart wizard will give you the option to write it to CD or to a DVD. So you can create your own little DVDs that you can walk around and place into these systems. I prefer the USB sticks because they're much smaller, they're easy to carry around, and not part of what we're going to show today, but you can actually build a multi-boot USB stick, because the interesting trick here is that when you build these ISOs, it's for the target OS that you're actually running on. In other words, if you're running on a Windows 7 64-bit system, when you run through Dart, Dart's going to want to create a 64-bit image, and it's looking for those source images of that. If you want to actually build a 32-bit one, you actually have to build it off of a 32-bit system. So what I usually do is I'll just spin up a couple of VMs, build the ISOs inside there, and then pull them out. Then I just create a multi-boot image so that I can boot from all the different operating systems. So my USB stick, I have a 16 gig stick that's got Windows 7 32 and 64, Windows Server 2008 32 and 64, and a Windows Server 2008 R2 64, and I even have a Windows Server 8 64 now. So that gives me the ability to get into any of these systems if I ever need to. So when you see me with my ultra yellow stick walking around, that's my recovery stick, and that gets me pretty much into anything I need to. But in this case here, we just go through, and once it's finished, we're gonna write this right out, and I'm using ISO to USB here, and we give it a couple of seconds, make sure that we set it up for booting, and we'll have it done here. So let's just burn this out. Once you've got your USB media built, simply take it to your target computer and plug it in. Reboot the system, and during post, get into the BIOS and make sure that you can set it up to boot off of the USB stick. Now, if you don't have access to those options in your BIOS, or you don't have the password to get into the BIOS, there's a very good chance it's still gonna boot off of DVD media. And as such, you can go back to that ISO you originally built, burn it to the DVD, and you'll still be able to get in. Either way, once it boots off of that media, it's gonna ask you to go into recovery mode, and you're gonna say yes. You're gonna select the target operating system on that system, and it'll allow it to boot up and bring up all the bits that it needs. One of the things you'll see as you get into the recovery console is an option at the bottom for the Microsoft Disaster and Recovery Toolset, or DART. Once you get in there and click on that option, there's a set of different tools that you built into that system. And the one we want is that locksmith tool. Simply click it, and it'll load from that operating system all the different user accounts in the system, giving you the option to reset the password. That's it. All you do is select the user you want, type in that new password, and reboot. Now, one thing to consider is when it reboots, because it's marked that it has to change the password, it's going to force you to change it to something else. So don't worry about making it some uber super secret password you got to worry about. Just put something in so that you can get into there and then set the password to what you really need it to once you reboot. Now, on the good side of these type of things, there are defenses to prevent this kind of stuff. At our office, all of our laptops are built with TPM chips in them. And because of that, we take advantage of using BitLocker. And through BitLocker, this option's not available to you, at least not without having the recovery keys in BitLocker. But otherwise, if BitLocker's not there, at this point, you've just compromised the system. Well, not really compromised it, you have physical access anyways. But the point is, you've now got in with that password and you can do whatever you like. And that's all there is to it to get into that Windows system. So key summary points to think about here. When you build the DART toolkit for your USB stick, you have to make sure that the target that you're building it using the DART wizard is the same architecture type as the target you wish to compromise. So in this case, if you want to target a 64-bit system, you're going to have to build your DART recovery image on a 64-bit system. Same with the 32-bit system. Now, if you really want to, if you have things like the Microsoft Deployment Toolkit and all the things with MDT, you can actually build a multi-boot option, as I was mentioning before, which then makes it possible that you can boot off all the different options, and that's probably for another episode, we'll show how to do that. But for today, our goal was to get into a system with a local password, and it's simply a matter of using Microsoft's toolkit to do it. Next week, we're going to show you how you can actually get into a domain controller in a little more insidious way. Until then, remember that passwords should be treated like toothbrushes. You should never share them, and you should be changing them every 3 to 6 months. See you next time.